Welcome again to a slow CrossYoga class. My name is Rhea and I'm going to guide you through this class. Mindful, slow movements that will strengthen your body, maybe heal your body, also stretch your body. So take a seat and let's start. You are welcome to sit in whatever way you feel most comfortable in. We're going to do a breathing exercise where we use our hands on our nose. And it's helpful, I think, to calm the mind a little bit because you're actually doing something with your hand and focusing on breathing. And it requires a little bit more of brain effort and focus than just sitting still and do belly breath. Now take your thumb and push in on your right nostril. Now, if you can't breathe through your nose, still just use your hands on your nose and just breathe through your mouth instead. But push in on right nostril, inhale through your left nostril. As you hold your breath, you take your pointy finger and close off also left nostril. Just hold your breath until you're ready to lift your thumb and exhale through your right nostril. Inhale here. And try to inhale deeply. Close off the nose with both fingers. Hold your breath. Lift your pointy finger and exhale. Inhale. Closing off, holding your breath. Maybe equal amount as you inhale and exhale, and then lift your thumb and exhale. Now I think you got it. Try to relax your right shoulder. Close your eyes and just continue as slowly as you can. Of course, without getting dizzy. And whenever you exhale the next time, just let your hand drop down in your chest. And maybe you feel a little bit more calm. You can close your eyes. And I'll read a scripture, just one or two verses from Psalm 77. Verse 11 and 12. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. What did that verse speak to you about? And I'll read it again, this time in the Message version. Once again, I'll go over what God has done. Lay out on the table all the ancient wonders. I'll ponder all the things you've been accomplished and give a long, loving look at your acts. This is a scripture about going back, looking back. I know that we often talk about being in the moment, and that is important. But sometimes it's good to go back and remember what it was like maybe when you came to faith, or when you had an experience of God. And if you haven't had one of those, maybe you had anyway in nature, when you felt in awe of something, or when you felt that love was so deep somewhere around you that you maybe couldn't stop crying, or you were just touched. I believe that's the hand of God, often. So let's try to meditate on some of these things, keep those things in mind so we don't just fast forward too quickly. Make your way into tabletop. Stack your hands underneath your elbow and your shoulders, and then do some free postures here. Move your spine slowly, mindful. And you're welcome to move as you think back on one important encounter you had with God. Maybe it's a long time ago. It might be years since you thought about it last, but that doesn't make it less important to remember it right now. And then walk your feet, or your hands, to the front of the mat and lift up your hip, downward facing dog. And again, you can move your legs slowly. Noticing that you can take your shoulder blades back and away from your ears. And then drop down your right knee on the mat. Let the left leg stay back. And then pull a little back on the calves there. You might feel a stretch as you take your heel back and away. And then lift this leg off. You might bend it, flex the foot so the foot is pointing towards the ceiling. Engage your core, get a little bit of heat, and you can always do a bit of circles, if that makes sense, moving your hip. And make your way down on that knee. If you feel like your wrists need a shake, do that. You can always come up on your fists. We're not really heavily putting weight on our hands here, so that's can be a helpful thing. Now take your right foot back, tuck it under, and kind of push the heel back for a gentle stretch in your calves and your hamstrings. Then lift the knee off, bend the knee, flex the foot. Again, engage the core so your spine is aligned with the floor. Do some movements. You can always also cross the leg. It's not always just about moving the leg out to the side. And put your knee down, child's pose. Maybe take your hands down by your side. Forehead on the mat if you're able to reach. And buttocks towards the heels. Again, draw your hands to the front of the mat, finding down dog for just 1 or 2 breaths. Making sure you can bend your knees, rather bending your knees than rounding your back, okay? And then walk your feet to the top of the mat. Fold forward. Soften your knees as you come into mountain pose at the top end of your mat. Let your palms face forward. Maybe put a smile on your face as you think back about the wonders. Maybe there was a certain feeling, at least in my case, the situation I'm thinking about, there was a joy and gladness about being loved by God. That was just so precious. Draw your hands in prayer pose in front of your chest. Let the underarm here be aligned with the floor, and then lean onto your right leg, lift up your left. And stay here. And maybe twisting, if you don't want to stay here, twisting over your left leg. Maybe keep the gaze on the floor. And really lift through the standing leg. Lower down that foot, left foot, take it back, high lunge. So bending the front knee, taking the arms up overhead. Soften your arms and feel that front thigh engaging as you stay here. Open twist, so take your arms out. Either stay here for open twist, or this left hand reach down the outer thigh of the front leg and open up your twist. Unwinding from the twist, lowering down, left knee, move back into runner's stretch. You might want to center this leg a little bit. Lean over, but take the left arm on the outer edge of the leg, and then go for a little bit of a side stretch as you lean over. So you're going for a forward fold, but combining it with a little bit of a rounded spine, not a twisted, rounded to the side. Slowly bending the front knee, you can take the left hand on the inside of the foot. Now the back leg, pivot that around so it comes out of the mat. The front foot is moved back. So we're going to do a version of side plank, but more like a side stretch. So allow your right leg is at the back, your right arm is over your head. Thumbs pointing down, other thumb pointing down. And maybe this is a posture of gratitude. Maybe you want to take this top arm and move it a little bit back, not too much though. Looking up. Drawing the hand down and back. Unwinding, getting yourself back on the mat, finding plank pose. If your wrists are sore, you can come down on your elbows or stay on your knees as well. creating a bit of heat in the body. So navel in, core involved. And then down dog, lift the hip up and back. Now down dog feels a little bit more easy, going directly from a plank to down dog. Now again to the top end of the mat. Vertebrae by vertebrae moving into your mountain pose, palms facing forward, and just stand still for a bit. The good thing about remembering back on the good experiences you had is that they almost become alive in your mind. And if you really vividly engage yourself in a memory, you can actually call forth those emotions as well as you remember. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're often in the Bible called to remember back, looking back. I think the Hebrew people was thinking back about what God did as they were let out of Egypt, for example. Think back. It's so important not to forget our history, not to forget what God has done. Now put your body weight onto your left leg, lift up your right, and you can take your hands into prayer pose again. Hugging in the hips, the ribs, and really standing tall. If you're up for it, try to go to that twist. So over to your right side this time. The hip stays where it is, but the shoulders are moving. And then check in with your breath as well. Coming back to center. Moving your right leg back, high lunge. So step it. A huge step back or just a little less, up to you. Reach your arms overhead and tuck the pelvis underneath yourself, not to go for a back bend too much here. Twisting your right hand, move forward. Again, you can stay here. I'll go for that a little bit lower, lean forward twist. Hands down, right knee on the floor, and then lean back for that runner stretch. Again, I like to move my foot or my whole leg a little bit more to the center as I lean forward. And then we did that side bend, so your right hand moves over to this side, and be mindful. Don't need to overdo this one. Awesome. Lift up a little bit. This left leg is going to be moved back, and just make yourself do that whatever way works. The right leg, the bottom of the leg is turned out to the side. So now I'm stretching the other way that I was before. Again, top hand here, the thumb is pointing down. lifting up the hip to feel that stretch on your left side body. And as we did before, you might move your shoulder just a little bit back, maybe looking up. And if you want to let the palm reach up, that's okay. If it's a sign of worship or surrender or whatever, it makes sense here. And let go, coming back. This time, plank on your elbows. Now let the hands reach forward. It's like the navel completely in, and maybe a slight micro bend in the knees if you're not on your knees. Engage the thighs. And still breathe, even though you're really engaging your core. And then come down on your hip. Cobra pose, so you can lift your chest up. Let your hands drop further away or closer to your body. We can try a little bit of an extra thing today, bending the knees. But again, be mindful. You might want to let the toes reach. Maybe looking up, feel like a graceful figure here. Really slowly come down. Tuck your hands, let your forehead come onto your hands and rest. And I'll read the verse just one more time. The NIV version. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. Coming to a seat on the mat. You can take your legs out to the side, toes pointing up. If this is too much, fold your mat, sit on a blanket, anything that elevates your hip a little bit, or just bend your knees, maybe don't go out as wide, up to you. We're going to turn to you're going to turn to your left side. And then draw your right shoulder towards the right knee. So we're going to go for a side bend. Now what I came to think about this time was the fact that it says, I will. It's not random. It's an act of will. I will remember. I choose to remember. I choose to meditate on God's deeds. Sit up. And move. Look at your right leg. Move your left shoulder down. I take my elbow on my inner thigh to keep me from just falling forward. So there is a willful choice there. Just as well as there is when I pray or reading the Bible, I'm trying not just to do it when I feel like it. I try to make it a habit to open my Bible to pray because I want to. And I want to remember God's deeds, not only when I feel like it. Coming to the seats. You can turn off your mat if that makes sense. We are gonna twist. So your right leg up. Take your left hand and let the pinky finger reach up and hold your foot, the outer edge of the foot, without crossing the legs. Now you might keep the knee bended, that's fine. If you can, try to extend, then lean your right shoulder back for that twist. Your right hand coming back on the floor. And then try to broaden through your shoulders so you're not leaning as I'm doing now, rounding my back. I'm trying to open up my chest as I move my right shoulder back. You can look back towards the back hand or whatever works for you. Let go. Sitting up tall, of course, moving to the other side. So right hand, pinky finger up. Extend the leg, mindful as I cross and turn that I'm not crossing this leg. I want to keep it as tall as I can, leaning as much back as I can, and moving the left shoulder back. Releasing. If you feel like resting on the mat, please come down on the mat in resting pose. I'm gonna sit today, but we'll take a few moments. It's just meditation, quietness. And I know for some of us, this might be a choice. I know that I often, if I do online yoga, tend to think, oh, the last part with meditation and rest, I don't have time for that. But maybe you need to make time today to sit still. Just for a few minutes. Sit or lay down. And I'll invite you again to think back about that specific situation where you felt like you were close to God or you had an encounter with God somehow. A spiritual experience, if that makes more sense in your case. Think back about the room or the place where you were. Maybe you remember what sounds was present. What smells you could remember. And remember what impact what you saw or heard or experienced had in your life. What did it do to you? And then say thank you to God. Thank you for what you experienced, what you felt, what you thought. And I'll finish our time with a prayer, and then I'll share just briefly my experience with what I had in mind. God, thank you that you appear in our lives. Even though we might not be really sure if it was you or what happened, I believe that you speak to us and meet us in so many ways. Help us not to forget in a busy everyday life with lots of things going on. Help us to remember and meditate and think back on the deeds that you have done in our lives and other people's lives. Amen. And I just feel like sharing a little bit. So what I thought back of was when I was around 20, 21. You can hear more about my story. I have made a video that's called My Personal Story. I can put a link at the end of the video. But it was I was in Australia on a disciple training school that I got for free, long story. And I remember sitting on this ship. We're actually staying on a ship by the harbor. And there was this preacher, teacher, whatever he was, in the room, the kitchen room, teaching one evening. And I remember I wasn't keen on really going, so I was just sitting on the stairs down to that kitchen area on the ship. But I saw the speaker going forth and back, and I remember he was talking about a crown and the crown jewels, and like God was wearing this crown of gold, like you see the old king and queens from movies having this huge crown, right? And then he spoke about us, or every single one of us, being a diamond in this crown. And I just remember that just hit home for me. I can't explain exactly why. It just did. Like, I was not just one random rock at the back somewhere on the crown jewel, on that crown, but I was actually the main jewel in God's crown. That God was looking at me, not just everybody else, but I was special. That God had a calling for me. That specifically, I was loved. I've heard that a lot of times. Maybe you have too, that you are loved. But one thing is knowing it up here. Another thing is actually sensing it deeply into your body, that yes, I am that valuable. I am that important to God, that I am the crown jewel on this beautiful crown that God is wearing. I am God's apple of the eye. Isn't that what you're saying in English, right? I still have a lot of siblings, sisters and brothers around the world. I'm not the only one, but in God's eyes, I am truly the only one, because I'm the only one called Ria. I'm the only one with my DNA and my fingerprint. So I am special, just like you are special to God. You're not just one among lots of people. In one way you are, right? But in God's eyes, you are not. You are special. You are called. You are valuable. And God sees you. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that encouraged you, and I hope that you'll take this with you throughout the day, that you are a jewel in God's crown, that you are very special in God's eyes. Thank you so much. God's blessings on your path.